Alright, I think I finally figured out the thing I've been trying to figure out. Hang on one second here, starting the stopwatch so I know how long this has been going for, because every time I do this I can't keep time on my phone because my phone's being used to do the live. I think I finally figured out how you do a live so that you can get subscribers. That'll be up next on the next one I do, but for now, I'm going to be reading to you from a book that I'm currently querying. It's called Rachel versus the Evil Brain Spot. It's about some of my experiences growing up with neurofibromatosis and with particularly a neurofibroma that they found in my brain, which we'll get to in Chapter 2. Some of you might have seen the start of this last night. I did not get all the way into 30 minutes though, so I'm going to have to start reading from the beginning of the book. Sorry if you heard the first couple chapters yesterday. There will be new material today. Chapter 1, A Not So Ordinary Day, November 10th, 1993. It was an ordinary Wednesday morning, except for all the ways in which it wasn't ordinary. Sorry, I'm yawning. First off, it was 10 a.m., but I wasn't in school. Also, my dad wasn't at work. We were both at Children's Memorial Hospital. Hospital visits were not frequent enough to be ordinary, but were also far from abnormal. Another out-of-the-ordinary detail, I was in the oncology ward, waiting for my first chemotherapy appointment. I'd never been to this part of the hospital before today. Ordinary aspects included the waiting room's hard plastic chairs and the black and white TV over my head. It was tiny and had been set to the news. Can you believe it? A grown-up show in a children's hospital? As usual, this part of the hospital reeked of ammonia and various ointments. My dad sat in a chair on my left. Super Man was to my right. His presence was also ordinary. My imaginary friend had a magic wand stuffed into a pocket in the back of his cape. I unzipped my backpack to rifle through my belongings. Coloring book? My fingers tapped against the pad filled with drawings and puzzles. Check! Exclaimed my imaginary friend. He manifested a clipboard and drew an enormous check mark on it. Homework? I hoped I would never be bored enough to get to it, even though my parents made me take it with. Check! Super Man beamed. His face was sparkling and glittery with makeup, like a fairy. This was how I'd always envisioned him, so also ordinary. Walkman? I ran my pinky finger over the smooth silver headphones band. Check, Superman said. Rachel, you can't wear those in the MRI. They're made of metal. He stared at my backpack intensely. A tiny flame appeared on the shoulder strap. Sorry! I blew it out with my ice breath. I'm not getting an MRI today, I reminded him. I have to get medicine. The doctors are going to give it to me in IV. I'd had many IVs before, usually with my MRIs. Like every other out-of-the-ordinary event of the day, this new treatment was mostly ordinary, but with a surprise twist. Oh, right. I forgot. Superman tried to fake a smile as if we were on another one of our more fun adventures. I hope they put the IV in your left arm. You can't do anything if it's in the right one. I nodded, although having an excuse to skip my homework would be excellent. Rachel Steen? A voice called out. Super Man, my dad, and I stood up. A nurse in kryptonite green scrubs was waiting for us. She held my chart in her hands. I knew this had to be one of Lux Luthor's minions, perhaps an evil supervillain all her own. Her short, spiky hair and evil smile were a dead giveaway. Plus, she got my name wrong. It was Stein, and it rhymed with fine. Superman used his X-ray vision on the nurse, but found nothing suspicious. We decided to keep an eye on her, just to be safe. She led us into a huge, white, round room. It was freezing. The stench of medicines and cleaners, bitter, acidic, and nauseating, was stronger in here. The room was packed with huge, stuffed chair things. They could lean up or down, like at the dentist's office. These things were half bed, half chair. Kids of all different races, ages, and genders were in the bed chair things, mostly lying down. As we marched past, I noticed some of the kids were completely bald. Others sported shaved heads with stubble. A handful had longer hair like mine. I flinched as we approached an empty bed chair near the restroom. Some patients had IV tubes taped to their arms. Other IVs disappeared under the collar of their shirts. They receive medications from bags and bottles. Is everyone getting the same medicine as me? I wondered to myself. Is my hair going to go away too? I whispered to Super Erman. He shook his head no, but had worry lines on his forehead. He wasn't positive. Right now, you're probably wondering all sorts of things, like what made me sick in the first place? Was Lux Luthor really after me? Which parts of the hospital did I normally visit? To answer all these and more, I'll have to travel back in time to when I was 3 years old. That was when I first learned I was sick. Chapter 2. My first MRI, March 28, 1988. I was born with a genetic condition known as neurofibromatosis type 1, or NF1, or NF for short. Some of the symptoms are found in all NF1 patients, like tumors and cafe au lait spots. Others are found in some, but not all NF patients. People with any form of neurofibromatosis have... Oh no, this is just a note from TikTok. We can ignore that, sorry. People with any form of neurofibromatosis have tumors called neurofibromas. These can grow in any part of your body where there is nerve tissue, so pretty much every inch of our body inside and out. Some of these tumors are as small as a freckle, others can be quite large. All NF patients have caramel-colored birthmarks called cafe au lait spots. All NF1 patients. I don't know if that's true for all the different kinds of NF. These grow all over our bodies too. I was diagnosed with NF as a baby, but I was in kindergarten before I knew having NF made me different. As you'll remember, this chapter takes place when I was 3. Children's Memorial Hospital stood in the center of a snow-covered block of Chicago. It was surrounded by tall buildings, shops, cars, and people. My parents and I stepped through the door into the warmth and bright humming fluorescent lights. The smells of popcorn and snow vanished. Where are they going to take my picture? I asked, looking all around. My waist-length ponytail swung along with me. I was confused because I didn't see any cameras, backdrops, or special lights. There were no lines of people waiting to get their photographs taken, no buckets of combs either. Instead, there were doctors, machines, and weird cleaning product smells. My mom and dad had described the MRI as getting a picture of my head. I was expecting it to be the same as class photo day in preschool. It's like a picture, my dad said, but of the inside of your head. He squeezed my hand tighter. We were taken to the sub-basement where the MRI machines are kept. A nurse took us into a tiny room with a bed in the middle of it. There were rails on the side like a crib. Someone hung a curtain all around the bed. "Hi there," the nurse said. "My name is Judy." She had teddy bears on her scrubs and smelled like ivory soap. Judy helped me onto the bed, then she left so I could change into a hospital gown. "Can I see your arm, sweetie?" Judy asked when she returned. She pushed a metal cart with needles, wipes, and IV tubing up to my bed. "Rachel has difficult veins," my dad said, holding his hand out to me. He and my mom were on the opposite side of the bed from Nurse Judy. As young as I was, I knew what came next. I'd already had my share of blood tests and one IV before. "Uh-huh," Judy said. She behaved as though she hadn't heard him. She took out a needle and an alcohol wipe. "On 3, she cleaned my arm. 1, 2, I inhaled and held my breath. Judy stabbed my arm without saying 3. I flinched. "Oh, drats, the vein blew." This is no big deal in the long run, but you can't get an IV into a blown vein, so she had to try again. This time, my vein tried to roll away as the needle approached. This, too, is a normal occurrence, at least for me. Judy dealt with the moving vein by digging around with the needle for what felt like a million years. 20 minutes later, a doctor came in. He injected something into my IV, and I fell asleep. I woke up I couldn't tell where I was. It was dark. It was loud. It smelled awful. I was alone. It must be a cave, I thought. My head and body had been strapped down to something stiff. A board, maybe rocks. There was a strange shell or mask over my face. Tears ran out of my eyes and down my cheeks. They poured into my ears. I screamed. "Help!" I sobbed. I heard a click. A strange voice filled my torture chamber. I squeezed my eyes shut, just in case they were about to attack. "Rachel, we need you to hold still," the voice said. Someone or something squeezed my foot. I realized my legs were sticking out of the cave. I opened my eyes a tad, looking around. There was a mirror attached to my head cage. I could see 2 torsos and 2 pairs of legs. I couldn't tell who they belonged to at first. It was too dim to see properly. When my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I realized the bodies belonged to my parents. Try to hold still, my mom said. I could hardly hear her over the crazy, clanging bongo drums. It'll be over soon, my dad promised. But it wasn't over soon. The MRI went on and on and on. At least I'll never have to do this again, I thought as we were leaving the hospital. 2 weeks would pass before I realized how wrong I had been. Chapter 3, The Worst News Ever. April 11th, 1988. I was sitting alone on the floor of my bedroom, playing with a Superman action figure and a Barbie doll. I heard the oven door close in the kitchen. Our house filled up with the aroma of hot garlic and tomatoes. 2 sets of footprints came stomping down the hall. My dad knocked on my door to the tune of Shave and a Haircut. Sorry. Come in, I said. I had an appointment with Dr. Shaw, my neurologist, and Dr. Blake, my geneticist, earlier in the day. But I'd been to many doctor's appointments. I visited some specialist or another every few months. Being 3, this didn't mean much to me. In fact, I assumed everyone went to the doctor as often as I did. I could see a reddish tint and puffiness under my mom's eyes. Both my parents were breathing as though they had colds. It was bizarre. They entered my bedroom, stopped to give me a quick hug, and then sat on my bed. We need to talk. My dad's voice was soft but cold. His lips quivered. My mom's knees shook. I was starting to freak out, but I didn't let on. Am I in trouble? I asked as I nibbled on Superman's toy boot. I couldn't remember doing anything wrong. Nothing worth a real punishment anyway. Maybe I forgot to flush the toilet again? But why would they both be here if that was so? My mom made a soft hissing sound. No, you're not, she promised. Do you remember when we went to the hospital to get pictures taken of your head? Yeah, I replied. I didn't like it. We never got to see the pictures, what they looked like either. The doctor wanted to look inside your head because they thought you might have a spot in your brain. Like your birthmarks. I nodded. I had more than a dozen of those. Cafe Ole spots, remember? And they found one. Is it a pretty color? I asked, looking at the one on my wrist. It was boring and brownish. Nobody answered me. The pictures are in black and white. We can't tell, my mom managed after a minute. The doctors want to keep an eye on your spots. I knew what this meant. They would not be putting eyes on my head. They wanted to watch it. Probably a lot. Bad news was coming. I could feel it. You're going to need more MRIs, she continued. I felt like I'd been thrown out of an airplane at 40,000 feet. I couldn't hear anything over the pounding of my heart and the air whooshing past me. We talked a while longer. My mom and dad took turns giving me hugs. A few minutes later, we all headed into the kitchen for dinner. I felt unsteady on my feet. I may have still been falling. After we ate, I brushed my teeth. I got ready for bed. My parents read me a story. My dad sang a song. Then they were gone. Alone in the dark, I curled up beneath the covers. Panic thoughts raced through my mind. Silent tears flowed down my face. I tossed and turned for what felt like hours. I cuddled my stuffed elephant Ellie. I nuzzled the Mickey Mouse security blanket Grandma made for me. I cried even more. Then, just outside my window came a strange and magical sound. Wind chimes playing the song Hey Jude. I looked up to see a sparkly ball of blue light heading for me. Flying inside of it was a figure. They appeared to be 85% Superman and 15% Pinocchio's blue fairy. I leapt out of bed. The window slid open by itself. The glittery-faced superhero got all tangled up and twisted in my blinds. A magic wand fell from his pocket, sewn into the lining of his cape. I helped Superman detangle himself and handed over the wand. No, it wasn't Superman. This person was even more super than any hero I'd ever heard of. Are you... I wasn't sure how to finish my sentence. Here to rescue me? Nope, he explained with a dopey grin. I'm here to help you rescue yourself. My new friend smelled like fresh baked lemon squares, mud pies, and swimming pool water. Who are you? I asked. Upon closer inspection, I noticed his costume was all wrong. He wore a sky blue supersuit, maroon cape and boots, and his chest shield was just a big red letter S drawn on in magic marker. My real name is Mark Bent, but my superhero name is Super-Erman. My eyes went wide. My own personal superhero? How cool was this? Want to go on an adventure? He asked. I nodded but yawned sleepily. Watch this. He waved his magic wand over my head. Purple pixie dust exploded at the end, showering over me. Every cell in my body tingled with electricity as they grew stronger and faster. I jumped up. My legs, which usually lifted me at most a half-inch from the floor on my best leaps, took me all the way to the ceiling. I bonked my head, but it didn't hurt. Careful, my new friend warned. We flew out of my bedroom window and took off into the night sky. Planets, constellations, and stars swam all around us as we zoomed down my street. The night air smelled of freshly mown grass and fireflies. The clouds tasted like cherry popsicles. I want to fly all the way to California, I announced, floating only inches away from Super-Erman's shiny boots. He nodded. Push your hand out like this to fly faster. I punched the air. Everything beneath us blurred. I saw fuzzy patches of green, brown, black, white, and blue. We overtook an airplane in seconds. Confused passengers stared out the window at us. I waved, smiling. A couple of kids waved back. Super-Erman slowed to a stop. We touched down on a pristine beach, empty except for the two of us and a pair of horses. There was a massive bay stallion for him and a tricolored pony for me. Our tropical paradise was dotted with palm trees, snapdragons, and bird-of-paradise flowers. It was warm but not too hot. I flew up onto my horse's back and we took off at a gallop. Medical issues forgotten, I grinned like crazy. Look, Super-Erman shouted, pointing ahead in the distance. An ice cream shop. We walked our horses through the drive-up lane, grabbed a couple of waffle cones, and rode off again. All was right in the world. Chapter 4. The Secret Room. June 25th, 1988. You're going out with Grandma today, my mother told me over breakfast one morning. My grandmother was unlike anyone else I've ever met. I never had a grandma, Super-Erman told me with the slightest of frowns. Grandmas are the best, I said with a huge smile, and mine is the bestest. She drives a fast convertible and cooks and travels all over the world. She even has a magic secret room in her house. One time she met a polar bear. To be fair, Grandma had traveled to Antarctica, where she did see wild polar bears, but they were never properly introduced. Wow, what do you think we're going to do? Super-Erman asked. In the 2 months since his arrival, my imaginary friend had never left my side. He even came with to my doctor's appointments, where he distracted me from the needles by telling me silly stories and making goofy faces. I don't know. With my grandmother, it could be anything. We might cook, swim, make art, or drive fast in the car. But anything with Grandma is super fun. Super-Erman's eyes lit up, and not because he was about to set something on fire with his heat vision. He was as excited as I was. Grandma arrived in her shiny yellow Mustang convertible around 11 a.m. The top was down, and the engine purred as she pulled into the driveway. Grandma had a floral print scarf over her wispy silver curls. She wore gold hoop earrings and a gigantic smile. She smelled of flowers and chocolate chip cookies. She, Super-Erman, and I zoomed down the streets, surrounded by the roar of wind whipping past our ears and rock music blaring from her radio. At red lights, she would take her right hand off of the wheel and pat my arm or give me a light tickle. Grandma has superpowers too, I whispered to my imaginary friend. She's not strong with muscles, but in her heart. She can make her car fly, and she has super listening power. At lunch, she demonstrated this ability by listening to every word I said and responding as if she were completely fascinated by the minute detail of my day-to-day life. I told her everything I had done the last week. I painted pictures, I went to a movie with my dad, I played with my next-door neighbor Judd. He has a hot tub in his backyard. His sister made him pee in a bush before we got in the water. Grandma chuckled. She placed her hand on top of mine. The table smelled wonderful with her iced tea drink and my grilled cheese and ketchup. She probably thought he would pee in the pool when he got in the warm water, Grandma replied. After lunch, we hopped back into the car, took the top down, and raced off again. 10 minutes later, Grandma zipped into her garage. Her and Grandpa's ranch-style house was surrounded by enormous oak trees, a stone pathway, and in the back was Grandma's flower and vegetable garden. Inside, it was like a fairy tale cottage. This house always smelled like something was baking, because Grandma was always either baking or had baked something in the last few days. There was an enormous stone fireplace, a dining room table with enough chairs and space for my extended family. There were walls decorated with drawings, paintings, photographs, and prints, some made by professional artists and others made by members of our family. Can we go in the secret room? I asked in the smallest of whispers. Grandma removed her scarf and finger-combed her hair. Shh, she said. Grandma pressed her index finger to her mouth. Together we tiptoed down the long hallway leading to her and Grandpa's bedroom. Our bare feet picked up static in the shag carpet. Grandma pressed on a door hidden in the back wall. Sunlight flooded out of the mysterious chamber. We stepped through the doorway and escaped into an even more magical hidden world. She and I walked past shelves covered in fabric, sculptures, and books. This hallway led to an open area with a high table and lots of art supplies. A few toys were scattered across the floor as well. A window was set into the western wall of this room. It faced the backyard. Grandma sat on a stool while I played on the floor. We giggled, talked, and snacked on brownies. With the window open a crack, I could smell tomatoes floating in on the afternoon breeze. It mixed perfectly with the chocolatey treats. Sometimes later, Grandma looked up from the stone she was carving. There was gray dust everywhere. I have some work to do in the garden. Would you like to come with me? Or stay inside? I thought this over for a minute. Super Erman dropped the toy car he'd been flying all around the room. If we stay inside, we can watch cartoons. He started to hum the theme song to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's not Saturday morning, I reminded him. Super Erman pouted. Then he jumped up and spun in a circle. His cape fluttered behind him. Let's go outside. We can practice running with your super speed. I'll go outside with you, I told Grandma. From the corner of my eyes, I noticed flashing yellow dots in the yard. Fireflies! I want to catch lightning bugs. I dashed about the yard, dodging bushes and plants. I traveled at speeds of 500 miles an hour. I grabbed a firefly with a gentle pinch and placed it in my jar. The bug flickered on and off. It bounced against the glass. Super Erman and I played super speed tag in the evening glow. Grandma tended to her tomatoes and asked me about my progress. She picked 2 fresh red balls from the vines and let me taste one. It was the yummiest tomato I'd ever eaten. Every so often, I'd scoop up another firefly from my jar. My life was calm and happy for the next several years, despite more MRIs and doctor's visits. Chapter 5. A hop, a skip, and a 5-year time jump away. August 17th, 1993. Super Erman, my parents and I, fell into our routines. For me, it was school, MRIs, playdates, checkups, family vacations, blood tests, and adventures with Super Erman and or Grandma. Every August, we spent an entire day at the genetics clinic. There, I was examined by no less than 5 doctors. I got my eyes checked out by an ophthalmologist. Someone put drops in my eyes before another doctor looked at them with special tools. The oncologist and the neurologist will look at my most recent MRIs and say a few words to me and a lot of words to my parents. The genetics specialist, Dr. Blake, examined me last. He was a man in his 30s with kind eyes and sandy brown hair. "Hop on up there," he said as he patted the metal exam table. I did. He held out his hands. "Squeeze my fingers as hard as you can." I did. "Ouch," Dr. Blake joked. I knew he was teasing. "I want you to push on my hand with your foot." He held out his palm, "like you're stepping on the gas pedal." Okay, I complied with this order. I knew what was coming next. "Nice work. Did you drive here today?" I rolled my eyes but said nothing. After a few more tests on the table, he gave me a hand as I jumped down. I bent over so he could check my spine. Then he made me walk in a straight line, heel to toe. To prevent me from getting bored, Super Erman cast a magic spell. I stood on a real tightrope high above the clouds. I was walking between two skyscrapers. The crisp cinnamon smell of fall flooded the air. My arms flapped at my sides as I smiled. I felt myself start to stagger. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and readjusted positions to avoid plummeting. Once Dr. Blake finished his exam, some of the other specialists came back into the room. They sat in a circle with my parents. I only half listened while Super Erman and I played with troll dolls. I would have paid more attention, but I could only understand some of what they were saying. "And she blasts off into space," I exclaimed as I made my toy fly. I was 8 years old now and about to begin 3rd grade. "What do you think they're talking about?" Super Erman whispered. The grown-ups had gone all quiet. Their faces looked strange. Sad, maybe scared. I wasn't sure. I made out words I knew like swelling, MRI, brain, and treatment. There were other terms too, ones I didn't know. Carboplatin, radiation, chemotherapy. On our way home, we stopped for ice cream. I got a scoop of mint chip in a cone. Super Erman spun around at super speed while drinking a 10-gallon milkshake. I didn't like the way my mom was acting. She didn't seem mad, but she was still sad or perhaps scared, possibly both. She kept patting her face with balled-up tissues from her purse. Her voice was all croaky, too. "Rachel," my dad said after way too much silence. He and my mom squeezed each other's hands. "The doctors are worried about your spot." Super Erman stopped spinning and stopped sipping. I held my breath. "They want to give you some medicine for it," my mom added. Phew! I had taken lots of medications in my life. No big deal. "All right," I said. "They could even add flavors to medicines now. Can I get the grape kind? Bubblegum flavor is yucky." It's not," my mom stammered. "It's a different kind of medicine. You'll go to the hospital and get it in an IV." I groaned. Super Erman stood up. He put his hands on his hips and growled. He began to morph into an attack dog. "Calm down," I told him. "We do scarier stuff all the time. Last week we had foiled Lux Luthor's attempt to fill the White House with maple syrup. He attacked us with flaming waffles." I even took Super Erman's hand to help him relax. "We have to go downtown for the treatments once a month," my dad said. I took a bite of ice cream and tried to swallow. It froze into a solid block halfway down. I had to chug about a gallon of water to melt it before I could breathe again. I nodded a lot during this time, but said next to nothing. I vaguely remember my parents telling me we would need 12 to 18 of these treatments. I think I answered my parents out loud a few times. We must have talked more, but I can't remember. I only remember the feeling of Super Erman's fingers as I squeezed them with all my super strength. I must have been in a bad mood for a long time, though, because about a week later, my parents tried a surprise to cheer me up. Chapter 6, Super Grandma to the Rescue, August 27th, 1993. And this is the last chapter I have printed out, so it's going to be the last one we'll read today. Over breakfast, my mom made an announcement. I was going to spend the day off with Grandma since I was out of school. She and Dad both had to work. I scarfed down the rest of my food, put my plate in the dishwasher, and raced upstairs. I stood before my dresser and stared at it. I frowned. I couldn't see through the drawers yet. No X-ray vision, even though Super Erman had been updating my abilities as I grew. "What are you doing?" he asked. I ignored him. I opened the bottom drawer, taking out some clothes. Super Erman asked me over and over what was wrong. He was like a 2-year-old that way. Finally, I gave in when he got down on his knees and begged with his folded hands. "I want you to teach me X-ray vision," I demanded. He smirked, reaching for the magic wand in his cape. "Of course. I was just waiting for you to ask." Super Erman waved his wand like when you do the rubber pencil trick. Hang on, I can demonstrate that, It kind of looks like it's bendy because you're shaking it. Alright, where is it? I felt pink sparkles shut out this time. I felt my eyes growing sharper, more focused. It was like when you go someplace dark. At first you can't see anything, then you adjust. You can see perfectly fine. Only it wasn't dark here. Everything around me looked clearer and more detailed. Super Erman reached behind my ear, pulling a coin out of thin air. This page is upside down. Cool! I watched him play with the silver dollar. He threw it up in the air. It vanished. I stared at his fist with all my might, trying to see inside of it. Suddenly, I was looking at an X-ray vision of his fingers and a shiny silver dollar. Only instead of in black and white, I could see everything in perfect color. Superman threw puffs of rainbow dust as he tossed the coin from one hand to the other. He did about a bazillion things to try and distract me. At last, he held out both his arms with his fists closed tight. "Where is it?" he asked. Not only could I see through his hand, I could see through everything I looked at. The coin had vanished. It wasn't in his hands, nor any place else in the whole house. "You cheated! It's not in either hand!" He made the silver dollar reappear. This time he pulled it out of my nose. "Sorry." He held it out to me as a prize. It was real money. I had to make sure I did the spell right. It's okay. I had X-ray vision now. I spent the next 20 minutes scanning every single item in my room, checking out their guts. I got dressed. I started to fill my backpack with toys, art supplies, and a copy of Shiloh. Grandma would keep me busy most of the time, but you never knew when you were going to need your favorite things. Someone knocked on my door. "Come in," I said. My mom checked me over. "You look cute," she said. "I want to make sure you bring your bathing suit. Grandma's taking you to Northmore to swim." About an hour and a half later, Grandma and I stood beside the register in a tiny, partially outdoor restaurant in the back of the country club. The cabana smelled heavenly to my 8-year-old nostrils. French fries, hot fudge, and mustard. It was a sunny 96-degree day. My grandmother, like many of the occupants, had on white linen slacks. Unlike everyone else, she wore a punkish purple blouse. "The usual?" she asked. I nodded. 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, 2 orders of fries, and 2 root beer floats. After she ordered, we sat down at a table near the mesh walls. "How is school going?" Grandma asked while we waited on our food. I had started 3rd grade on Monday, but we were off today. "It's okay," I said. I wiped the spaces between my fingers on my shirt. On my shirt. "There's a nice girl in my class, Mindy. We played house at recess." "Who got to be the mom?" she asked. See what I mean about her listening to what you had to say? Anyone who has ever played house as a kid understands the argument over who gets to be in charge. But Mindy and I had solved this problem. Our drinks arrived. I took a big sip and my mouth filled with sweet vanilla flavor. Bubbles tickled my nose. I chuckled. "We pretended we were sisters. We lived by ourselves on a farm. No stinky grown-ups," I explained. Grandma didn't laugh at me, but I noticed her lips twitching upwards. I thought about Mindy some more. "What about your teacher? Is she nice too? Are you learning anything fun or interesting?" Another upside-down page. "Our teacher's reading us Tales of a 4th Grade Nothing. It's so funny." Our food came. We ate and chatted more. After lunch, we sat on lounge chairs next to the pool as we digested everything. Later, she and I changed into our swimsuits. I jumped into the pool and splashed around. After a while, my grandfather stopped by the fence to check on us. Grandpa was slender and bald, with a silver and white mustache. He wore golf slacks, a polo shirt, and a sweater vest. When he wasn't playing golf, he worked as a doctor, traveled with Grandma, and played the accordion. "How are you ladies doing?" he called. I climbed out of the water, shivered, and raced to him. Grandma walked behind me carrying a towel. "We had lunch in the cabana, and now we're swimming," I said. I was about to jump off the diving board. I can't miss something so important. My partners will need to wait. Let's see. The air smelled of snapdragons and chlorine. I climbed up the ladder to show off my new trick. I'd only learned to do cannonballs this summer. Grandma and my parents' plan had worked. I was completely distracted. My spots, MRIs, and the new treatments were the furthest thing from my mind. That's the last page I have saved, so the only way to get more would be to go on my computer, which is not something I'm going to do while I'm on live, but I might read more of this again another time. I'm certainly hoping to be more successful in my lives in the future. I'm also hoping that since I'm querying this book, my lives might get it more noticement, maybe get someone interested in actually publishing it or being my agent or something. That's really all I've got today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.